Today I am continuing to read from On the Shortness of Life by Seneca. All those things help only for a short time. They do not cure grief, but hinder it. But I would rather end it than distract it. And so I am leading you to that resource which must be the refuge of all who are flying from fortune, liberal studies. They will heal your wound. They will withdraw all your melancholy. Even if you had never been familiar with them, you would have need of them now. But so far as the old-fashioned strictness of my father allowed, you have had some acquaintance with the liberal arts, even if you have not mastered them. If only my father, best of men, had been less devoted to ancestral tradition, and had been willing that you be steeped in the teaching of philosophy and not just gain a smattering of it, you would not now have to acquire your defense against fortune, but just bring it forth. He was less inclined to let you pursue your studies because of those women who use books not to acquire wisdom, but as the furniture of luxury. Yet, thanks to your vigorously inquiring mind, you absorbed a lot considering the time you had available. The foundations of all formal studies have been laid. Return now to these studies and they will keep you safe. They will comfort you, they will delight you, and if they genuinely penetrate your mind, never again grief will enter there, or anxiety, or the distress caused by futile and pointless suffering. Your heart will have room for none of these, for to all other failings it has long been closed. Those studies are your most dependable protection, and they alone can snatch you from fortune's grip. But until you arrive at this heaven which philosophy holds out to you, you must have supports to lean on. So I want, meanwhile, to point out your own consolations. Consider my brothers, while they live, you have no reason to complain of your fortune. In both you have contrasting virtues to cheer you up. The one achieved public office by his energy, the other in his wisdom despised it. Take comfort in the distinction of the one, the retirement of the other, and the devotion of both. I know the innermost feelings of my brothers. The one fosters his distinction really in order to bring honor to you, while the other has retired into peace and tranquility in order to have leisure for you. Fortune has done you a service in arranging that your children should bring you both assistance and delight. You can be protected by the distinction of the one, and you can enjoy the leisure of the other. They will be rivals in their services to you, and the devotion of two will fill the blank space left by one. I promise you with complete confidence that you will miss nothing but the number of sons. After these, consider too your grandchildren, Marcus, a most charming child. You could not remain sorrowful while looking at him, and no one's heart could suffer anguish too great or too recent not to be soothed by his embrace, whose tears would his merriment not allay, whose heart gripped by anxious care would not relax at his lively chatter, who will not smile at his playfulness, whose attention, however fixed on his own thoughts, will not be attracted and held by that prattling which no one could tire of. I pray to the gods that he may survive us. May all the cruelty of fate wear itself out and stop at me. Whatever you were destined to suffer as a mother and as a grandmother, may I represent. Let the rest of my family flourish undisturbed. I shall not complain of my childlessness or my exile, if only I prove to be the scapegoat for a family that will suffer no more. Embrace Novatilla, who will soon give you the great-grandchildren. I had so attached her to myself and adopted her that in losing me she could seem an orphan. Though her father is alive, cherish her for me too. Fortune recently took away her mother, but your love will mean that she will only grieve over her mother's loss, but not suffer for it. Now you must shape and compose her character. Teaching sinks more deeply into those impressionable years. Let her grow used to your conversation and be molded as you think right. You will be giving her a great deal even if you give her only your example. Such a sacred duty as this will act as a cure for you, for only philosophy or honorable occupation can divert from its anguish a heart whose grief springs from love. I would reckon your father too among your great comforts, if he were not absent. As it is, you must now judge his love for you by your love for him, and you will realize how much more just it is for you to preserve yourself for him than sacrifice yourself for me. Whenever excessive grief attacks you and urges you to give way to it, think of your father. Certainly by giving him so many grandchildren and great-grandchildren, you cease to be his only offspring. But for him, the completion of a happy life depends on you. While he lives it is wrong for you to complain that you have lived. Up to now I have said nothing about your greatest comfort, your sister, the heart most faithful to you, into which are poured unreservedly all your anxieties, that soul which has been a mother to us all. You mingled your tears with hers. On her bosom you first began to breathe again. Always indeed she shares your feelings, but in my case she grieves not only for you, she carried me in her arms to Rome. During my long illness it was her loving and motherly nursing that brought me round. When I was a candidate for the quaestorship, she supported me, and though she normally lacked the confidence even for a conversation or a loud greeting, for my sake love conquered shyness. Neither her sheltered manner of living nor her modesty, old-fashioned when compared with the prevalent brazenness of women, nor her tranquillity, nor her reserved nature which wanted peace and quiet. None of these prevented her from actually becoming ambitious on my behalf. She, dearest mother, is the source of comfort from which you can revive yourself. Cling to her as much as you can in the closest embraces. Sorrowers tend to avoid what they are most fond of and try to give vent to their grief. But you must share all your thoughts with her, whether you wish to keep this mood or lay it aside. You will find it in her either the end of your sorrow or one who will share it. But if I know the wisdom of this paragon of women, she will not allow you to be consumed in profitless anguish, and she will tell you of an edifying episode in her life which I also witnessed. While actually on a sea voyage, she lost her beloved husband, my uncle, whom she had married as a maiden. Yet she bore simultaneously the burdens of grief and fear, and though shipwrecked, she rode out the storms and brought the body safely ashore. Oh, how many noble deeds of woman are lost in obscurity! If she had chanced to live in the days of old, when people frankly admired heroism, how men of genius could have competed to sing the praises of a wife who ignored her physical weakness, ignored the sea which even the bravest must fear, and risked her life to give her husband burial, and while her thoughts were on his funeral, had no fears about her own. All the poets have given renown to the woman who offered to die in place of her husband. But this is nobler, to risk one's life to bury one's husband, for that love is greater which wins less through equal danger. After this, it can surprise no one that during the 16 years her husband governed Egypt, she was never seen in public. She received no provincial into her home. She never petitioned her husband for a favor, and she never allowed herself to be petitioned. The result was that a province given to gossip and clever at insulting its rulers, where even those who avoided wrongdoing did not escape scandal, respected her as a singular pattern of integrity, restrained all the license in its speech, a very difficult achievement where even dangerous witticisms are popular, and even to this day keeps hoping, though it never expects to see another like her. It would have been a great achievement if she had won the approval of the province for 16 years. It was even better not to have been noticed there. I do not recall these things in order to list her good qualities. To rehearse them so sketchily is to be unfair to them. But to give you an idea of the high-mindedness of the woman who was not conquered by ambition or greed, those inevitable comparisons and curses of power, who facing shipwreck on a disabled boat was not deterred by the fear of death from clinging to her dead husband and seeking not the means of her own escape but the means of getting his body off for burial. This is the sort of courage you must match by withdrawing your mind from grief and resolving that no one shall think you regret having had children. However, whatever you do, inevitably your thoughts will turn to me constantly, and none of your other children will come to your mind more often. not because they are less dear to you, but because it is natural to touch more often the part that hurts. So this is how you must think of me, happy and cheerful, as if in the best of circumstances. For they are best, since my mind, without any preoccupation, is free for its own tasks. Now, delighting in more trivial studies, now in its eagerness for the truth rising up, to ponder its own nature and that of the universe, it seeks to know first about lands and their location and the nature of the encompassing sea and its tidal ebb and flow. Then it studies all the awesome expanse which lies between heaven and earth, this nearer space turbulent with thunder, lightning, gales of wind, and falling rain, snow and hail. Finally, having scoured the lower areas, it bursts through the heights and enjoys the noblest sight of divine things and mindful of its own immortality. It ranges over all that has been and will be throughout all ages.